Jonathan Djanogly.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And the sanctions regimes and measures taken under them against named individuals and Russian state assets have obviously played a vital role in the Ukrainian resistance, albeit of a more slow-burning nature than military help. A slow-paced, grinding remedy against what has turned into a slow, grinding war, where bravery, defiance, and the spirit and determination of enlisted men will ultimately allow Ukraine to prevail. But we must play our part. And as of May, records show that 1,604 individuals and 228 entities are subject to UK freezing sanctions under the Russian regime to a value of approximately £18 billion, and in addition, an estimated £26 billion of Russian state assets are frozen here in the UK. Russia is the most sanctioned country in the world, and whilst the innocent Ukrainians continue to be killed for Russian imperialist ambitions, this must remain the case. More broadly, it's estimated that some $275 billion worth of Russian assets have been frozen worldwide. The government is actively freezing assets. Freezing is good, but frozen assets being reallocated to Ukraine's benefit will be better, not least because of the monumental sums that are estimated to be needed to fund reconstruction. That is, reconstruction of homes, businesses, infrastructure, and lives. I was therefore interested and pleased to read the detail of the statutory instrument laid by the Minister of State for Development last Monday. Its introduction enables freezing order sanctions to be maintained until Moscow pays compensation to Ukraine for the destruction Russians have caused, and will continue to cause until the war ends. It is a positive step towards the calls that I and many other honourable and right honourable members of this House have been making for assets forfeiture, although we are certainly not there yet. As part of the Joint Foreign Office, Treasury and Home Office press release from last week detailing these new legislative measures, I read with interest that the government is proposing, and I quote, to force sanctioned individuals to disclose UK assets, which will bring greater transparency and leave less room to hide. This proposal is one that is long overdue, and I encourage the government to make it a legal reality as soon as it is possible to do. Could the Minister please explain the planned legislative process to enable this? Questions over the specifics of this proposal, however, remain. When brought forward, I believe it is crucial that if sanctioned individuals are found to be in breach of it, this should open all of their frozen assets to seizure and reallocation. So I ask the Minister, would a breach of this provision cover an individual's entire sanctioned asset base, at least that in the UK, and not just that which may have been found to have been hidden? This would have the dual effect of equipping the government with a large motivational stick when it comes to greater transparency, and allow the effective forfeiture of a potentially significant amount of assets if breaches are identified. Both effects are, I believe, desirable, and I'd be interested to hear whether the Minister agrees. Ultimately, the strength of the UK's response to Russia's attack on the post-1945 world order rests on being in lockstep with our international allies. The US, EU and Canada are all proactively working on or have already implemented means of asset seizure and reallocation, even if only in a limited way. The move to allow frozen assets in the UK to be allocated towards Ukraine's reconstruction complements similar moves in the US and Canada last year, and proposals of the EU made earlier this month. All of this is very welcome. I give way.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for giving way, and I apologise for missing the opening of the debate. Has any consideration been given to what should happen to the interest or other income generated by those assets during the period that they are frozen? Surely, even if the assets are not seized in the end, their owners should not benefit from anything that the assets earn during that frozen period.
Yeah. My right honourable friend makes a different point, but an important point. This aspect has been pursued by the European Union. In fact, I believe they set up a committee about a month or two ago to look at this very point, and I think it's one that is a very good idea, and we should certainly be pursuing it. Obviously, all of these assets, these sanctions assets, have costs to keep. Flats have to be maintained, boats have to be maintained, and we should be using income from these assets, at least to pay for the maintenance of them, if not to get income that we can then give to Ukraine. He makes a very good point. I heard the Minister earlier say that this would not be allowed, and this is the use of going to the use of frozen assets towards reconstruction, that this would not be allowed as a means of circumvention. But it would, however, seem rather unlikely that a Russian-sanctioned person would permit their frozen assets to be donated to Ukraine unless there was some benefit to them, such as sanctions cancellation. So perhaps the Minister could explain why else they would actually want to do it. Why would the sanctioned individual want to give their assets to Ukraine if there wasn't a deal to be had? The Ukrainians, it has to be said, have expressed concern at the prospect of deals being done with oligarchs in individual countries. They think this might breach the wall, so to speak, and so could the Minister confirm that deals, if at all, would only be done on a multilateral basis? And one final point, if I may, Mr. Speaker. The original purpose of our adopting the Magnitsky sanctions was to protect those whose human rights are ignored by foreign regimes. As the Russian Federation staggers on, we must remain vigilant towards those of its citizens who support democracy. At this very moment, Open Russia's Vice Chairman, Vladimir Kara-Murza, twice poisoned and now sentenced to 25 years, languishes in a Russian prison, even though his lawyers and family are unsure of his exact whereabouts. Mr. Kara-Murza, whose brave wife I had the honour of meeting here in Parliament last week, is a valiant spokesman for democracy and human rights. The government have sanctioned only 5 of his dozens of tormentors, but even Lithuania have sanctioned 15 of them. As a British citizen, should Mr. Kara-Murza not expect us to be leading the way on this issue? And I hope that ministers will now respond with appropriate resolution.
Dame Neergrove.